Hello, and welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast with Heather and John. And welcome to 2025, where we help you with your personal and professional growth, helping you say yes to all the scary stuff. Hello, Heather. How are you?
I am amazing, John. And yes, it's 2025. It is a Friday moment. It's that moment when we look back on our week, our year, what amazing
Wow.
things happened. What are we celebrating today? So, John, let's start with you. And for all our listeners out there, you know that we love to celebrate with you. So, if you are listening in, put in the comments,
Hmm.
what is your celebration moment this week? Because we want to celebrate with you. John, tell us what
Yeah.
your Friday moment is.
Listen, it's been so many good moments this week, but one that really stood out for me, just connection with family and friends, especially as we've been going through the holidays, just having time with them, sitting down, having breakfast together, which is something that seems like incredibly, it just doesn't happen because everybody's got busy lives, the kids in and out. And, it's been really nice just being able to sit down and have, you know, breakfast with everybody. I know it's such a little thing, but such a big thing for me. What about you? What's your celebration this week,
You know
Heather?
what? Same thing. Time with family, time with friends, but time to actually recharge my brain and my
Mm.
body. And that was a gift that I gave myself. And now that I have it, I'm like, okay, I can now activate, super energy for the coming year. So super excited about that. And also super excited that I sat down on January 1st, which is my action that I do every January 1st, and looked at a reflection of the year, but also how did
Mm.
my word of the year show up for me? And last year, we both chose the word believe because we love Ted Lasso, and believe showed up in so many ways, John. And I don't know if you've done your reflection yet, but how did your word for the year show up for you?
Yeah, actually, this is something I did on Christmas Eve. I did it with the kids. We sat down, we kind of went through this process because we all have words, right? And with the whole family, we all have words, and we kind of looked at how did that word show up for us. And for me, believe was stepping into this new role as an entrepreneur and being out there in the world and doing things that weren't necessarily on my goal list when I first started, but are here now. It's just I've created something that I didn't think existed 2 years ago, and I've been able to step into new types of work, coaching great new clients, and even working with new organizations where I get to serve in a really big way. So yeah, believe came into all of those, and believing and building new relationships too. That's one
Ooh.
thing that's shown up for me over and over. And when I think about it, one of the aha moments I had was when I looked over the last year and a half, 2 years, the people I know today I didn't know 2 years ago. And they
Ooh, I
say you
love
can't,
that.
and they say you can't make friends when you get older, right? Like, come on, give me that's BS, right?
You
It's-
totally can. In fact, the I believe that the friends you make when you're older are more closely aligned to your values because it's not by default. You went to school with
Mhm.
them or you work with them. It's people that you're choosing to have in your life. So yes, you can make new friends, and you should probably have less friends when you're older because you are looking for those people that match your values. So I had the same word. I had
Yeah.
believe for the year, and when I sat down and reflected how that showed up for me, it was amazing to see. It was belief in myself. It was
Mm.
belief in what I deserve. It was belief in the gifts that I bring to the world. And, that wasn't the intention of that word when I started. And that's the beauty of that reflection process is it's a straight line when you know where the outcome is. But at the beginning, that word, it acts as a compass to drive your decisions and drive your actions. So this is such a powerful exercise. And I know, John, you bring all of your coaching clients through this process. I ask people all the time, what's your word for the year? And when they choose that word, I write it down and I keep checking in with them to see how is that word showing up. And even if they've forgotten their word, it's still showing up for them because the brain is activated immediately. So we have chosen the same word again.
Mm.
It's because we're connected at the hip for sure. But what is our word, John?
Yeah, our word for 2025 is bold. And actually, I've gotten creative, and maybe I'm going to start selling these on Amazon, right? Like a pen and a mug. So you can write down your word. But mine is bold, right? So, one of the habits I've been getting into this week, which has been really interesting, is writing on my mug with a non permanent marker. I can always wash it off, but I always have like an expression. So mine is take one bold action today, right? And that
Ooh.
is what, right? And I just got creative with it. I've been looking for a word um, that says bold, but I can't find a mug with bold. So I'm like, well,
As
this,
soon as I saw your handwritten mug, I was on Amazon to see if I could just send you one, but you're right that we have to design something on Etsy to and I think that's bold. Why don't we be bold about it and just design our own mug?
yeah,
That's the best part. But I love your creativity, and so being bold means being creative and not worried about, well, it's handwritten or not. So that is
yeah,
definitely one way to look at it. For me, be bold is taking what I learned from last year in believe, and now if I believe it, then it's time to take action on some things that I've been sitting on. So being bold for me is doing the things that I love, that I can impact the world and be of service to the world. And that's how it's
yeah,
showing up today. But let's see how that actually shows up, because I'm letting go of the how so that I can actually let the word and the emotion of it find its own way.
yeah. Actually, and there's one thing that didn't show up for me until I actually started practicing it. The word of bold, right? Don't worry how it's going to impact others. Right. And
Oh,
here's why. Because me being bold is me stepping out of my comfort zone and me being someone different. Right. So you
yes.
got to imagine the people around you are going to be like, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, I'm just being bold. Right. Like a word belief is different. Right. Because that's internal. There's nothing external out there. But bold is an external act, right? Like being bold and asking for the business, being bold and asking for whatever it is you want, right? Like being bold is something that if you just be aware of it, that people around you might be surprised by the action that you take on your word, and just know that it's okay to do that. Just let them know this is what I'm working towards, right?
I
Especially
love that. I love that. And
yeah.
if you get feedback, then take that as a positive interaction, especially if they see you acting differently, because no matter what you're doing, every day we're influencing whether our behaviors are
Hmm.
positive or negative. And so when you're being bold and asking for what you want, someone else might be like, wow, I would have never asked for that. But what if that gave them permission to do the same thing in
Yeah.
their life? What
Yeah,
if
and sorry, go ahead.
no, I just like that. That's such a powerful question. What if that your act gives them permission to do the same in their life? Wow.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the thing too, like don't play small because people are afraid of your word, right?
Mm.
This is what I can see showing up because one of the, I've been having this word conversation with everybody we've been coming into contact with. People are like, "Oh my gosh, the word. This is my word." And somebody came up with the word. It was a couple that we were sitting down with, and the lady came up with the word. Her word for 2025 was assertive. She wanted to be more assertive in the things that she said, being assertive and speaking up when she needed to speak up. And it was funny. Her husband just looked at her and like, "What do you mean, sort of?" He goes, "Yeah, that's great. I love it." Like he was so encouraging, and supportive. He goes, "Yeah, I would love for you to do that, and I'm here to support you any way I can." So what you might find are people are going to come out of the woodwork to say, "Hey, I'm with you. How can I help?"
Ooh, I
Right.
love it.
That's why I love it when you take it and you share the word. And I've been getting updates, right? And the lady, she sent me a message. She goes, "You'd be so proud of me. I've been acting on my word assertive all week, in her work and the people that she's been working with, because there's a dynamic there, right? So she needed to step into being assertive, to saying no and saying yes to certain things." And she goes, "It's been amazing how things have changed
Ooh, I
because she
love that.
said this word," right? Yeah, it was just so cool. It was so cool.
Well,
And it's been
one of the things that we both encourage and do ourselves is journaling. And for anyone that's like, I don't know what to journal about, you can just journal every single week, every single day. How did your word show up? If you just answered that question, you're going to do a reflection that is pretty powerful for assessing your actions and then assessing what would taking it to the next level also look like. So, today you might be bold at 80%, but what if tomorrow you were at 90% or 100 or 110%? What would that look like? So, and of course, insert whatever your word is. So if you're listening with us and you already know your word of the year, even if you're just trying it on still, put it in the comments. We want to hear. And Tamar, I see that you're there. Always a pleasure to have with us as well. So thank you for joining us. Now,
yeah,
John,
welcome. Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
People have made New Year's resolutions, and both
Mm.
me and you do not subscribe to the New Year's resolution process. And why is that?
Well, because most people give up on them by the 15th or 80 or 75%. I forget what the number is, but it's such a high number. By the end of the year, people forget. By the end of the month, by the end of January, people forget even what the resolutions were, right? This is why, when I go through this goal setting activity or this goal setting process, I start in November, right? Like I
Mm,
start in November because I want to create those habits going into the holidays. So by the time I'm on the other side of them, I've already built in some new habits. But the resolution piece, it's got to be anchored in something, right? To say I want to lose weight or, I want to make more money or whatever that is, it's got to be anchored in a why. Like, why are you doing this? Like, what's the purpose, right? Like, what are you trying to set? And if you're just doing it for yourself, two things. If you're just doing it for yourself, it's not necessarily going to have the energy because
mm-mm.
whatever you do is going to have an impact on somebody else. And if you're doing it for that reason, you're going to be more driven to stay committed to it. The other thing is, and this is, we had a conversation around the dinner table around this one, was do you share that goal, that vision with somebody? Or do you just
Mm.
keep it to yourself? In my experience, I've always found it way more powerful to have people around me keep me accountable to something versus than just me keeping it to myself, trying to do it on my own. So, one of the things you want to think about is, who is it for outside of you? Actually, one of the things I do when I go through the goal setting process, who outside of you, who else is also benefiting from you accomplishing whatever you set out for yourself? And what you find is that creates more energy, that creates more momentum, that creates more motivation to stay on track with something. What about you, Heather? What are your thoughts around this?
Well, the word resolution means there's
Mm,
something to resolve, which means that there's a problem. And we're not problems. We're learning beings that are going through a human
mm,
experience. And so when we are looking at it from a problem, we're attaching energy that something needs to get fixed. And it's usually attached to something that's on ourselves. And that alone is going to bring your vibration, your energy down immensely right from the start. So, there's nothing to resolve, there's nothing to fix. If
mm,
you want to improve, if you want to better yourself, if you want to grow, that's a whole different action. And, you nailed it, John. It's what are the actions? What's the goals? And what is it going to look like? So, the visualization of what's the perfect outcome of that goal,
mhm,
including who will it impact? How will I show up differently in the world? How will I know that I got there? Who's going to be celebrating with me? And what are the words and feelings that I have in my body around that goal? And you can
mm,
forward into the future and think, when I get there, how will I think, act, and feel? And that's so important to do. But there's another step to this, John. You can do all of that action planning, but if you don't do the other visualization, which is what will happen if you do nothing?
mm,
What will happen if you don't change your mindset, if you don't change your behaviors, if you don't change your worldly views around this? What will be the outcome? And the reason that that's an important process in this is because the mind needs contrast. It needs to see both sides because our brains and our bodies run from pain. So if the do nothing is going to cause you pain, guess what your brain will do? It'll go look for ways to take action. And so both of those visualizations need to be done at the same time to really
mm.
activate and solidify how you're going to show up in the world and how that action is going to happen for you.
Yeah. Well, and, some people might be listening. Like I'm running through a process in my head right now where I can actually see what it looks like, which is part of the reason why I stepped into health over the last 2.5, 3
Mm,
years, because I kind of fast forward and looked at my life, in my 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, and I've been so inspired. I've been watching How to Live Longer, I think it's called, Living in the Blue Zones. It's a special on Netflix where they talk about what certain regions of the world are doing to have the highest concentration of what I believe they call them centurions, like people
mhm.
that are over 100 years old, right? And, I thought about what my life would look like if I didn't step into positive action today, like taking care of my health, going to the doctor, watching what I put into my body in terms of nutrition, what I would start to look like. Would I even get to like 70 or 80? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I saw all the negative sides of it. And it's like, wait a minute, that's not what I want. Right. So for those of you that might be struggling on what this process might look like, is just kind of taking, like just like what Heather said, if you're not taking action in a certain direction today and you keep indulging in the things that you're indulging in, of not taking action and relaxing and taking it easy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's not what you want for yourself in 20, 30 years, then, today's the day, right? Because one of the things they found, and, this is the thing I kind of heard over and over about the blue zones, is just taking that consistent action, because it's not something that's done in a week or two, it's something that happens over weeks, months, even years, to get to that high level of standard of living where, you're 100 years old, you're still walking up and down hills, and you're getting to enjoy the most of life, right? And that's, so you can think about all the positives, but if you focus on the negatives, that can give you the action, the energy, the momentum, the motivation that you need to take action today towards that one thing. And I love how you said, visualize it, like actually see it, feel it in your body. Because I know there's a process that the two of us have gone through where you feel all those negative feelings where, you just get to the point where it's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
No,
Right.
no. And for those of you that are like, but I don't know how, that's okay. The how will show up if you take action. And every time you take one more action, another little window opens, another little, you can see a little bit more of the whole puzzle. So don't worry about the how. That is not important right now. How you want to feel at the end of reaching that goal is what is important. And that you can visualize and feel in your body right now. And that will give you the clarity of how to get there. It'll come to you action by action. But if you're just sitting with a piece of paper and saying, well, I need to know how before I take any action, you're not going to move. You're not going to change. This is a mistake so many people make over and over and over again. Please don't make it in 2025.
Yeah. And so this is, just going back to where we started at the beginning of the podcast was, your word is part of the how, right? Right. Which I love it because it becomes that puzzle piece that moves us forward. If for us is bold, what do I need to do to be bold today? Just like I wrote on my mug, right? Take one bold action today. And, maybe that one thing is making that one phone call. That's it. Like that's using that word to take that action to move forward. And whatever that is for you, whether it's assertive, it's strength, it's confidence, it's, whatever your word is for you, how can you act on that word to get you closer to your goal? Which is why I love the power of this word that we set for ourselves in 2025, because that word is part of that how.
It's part of that how.
Right? So
part of that how. And in your example, the person wanted to be more assertive. Their partner was really supportive of that. A lot of times a word that we're looking for, if you have someone that you can model, someone that does this word or does this action constantly, that is a really good thing to also do. What would it feel like to step into their shoes for a moment, or what would that person do in this situation? So it's a good way to step in and try on different scenarios, but with that action item or that word that you've chosen. So that is a really, really good thing. Okay, we're going to be talking about this for a little while, John, because being bold is going to show up for us in some pretty magical ways. And I'm already seeing my brain just switch on and be like, oh, that's not a bold enough action to take. So maybe I'll take a little bit more. But for everyone listening out there, your call to action is to pick your word for the year. And here's what you want to do. Just sit down and write down some words that have energy around them that's positive. And then start to circle your favorite ones and get down to 2 words and then try those on this week. And those 2 words, one of them is going to shine brighter than the other one. And that's your word for the year. And don't make it any more difficult or more overwhelming than just that process.
Yeah, no, I love it. And then, Heather, you broke it down. Actually, I was thinking about doing like a mini workshop on this so I could, take people through this process so they can pick that word because it will become your beacon. It will become part of your how if you know what that word is. So I love that you share that with everybody. Yeah, just take a few minutes this week. Actually, take a few minutes right after this, after you're listening to
Yes.
this, whether it's live or whether you're listening to the recording, just listen to it and just take a few minutes, go through that process, pick your word because you're going to love how it's going to guide you towards what it is you really want. So thank you for that, Heather. Great call to action today. So I can't believe we're already here. We're at the end of the podcast. But for those of you that have listened in, thank you for joining us live, and for those that have listened to the recording, thank you. Just remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to you all soon. Take care.